Yo, wait a minute. Are we supposed to be doing our project right now, guys?
You're right. Key issue 12.1 talks about the distribution of services. But first, how is a service defined? A service is any activity that fulfills a human want or need in exchange for money. The service sector is also known as the tertiary part of the economy. It has three subdivisions: consumer, business, and public services. Consumer services are services which are provided to people who want them and have the needs to afford them. There are four main types of consumer services: retail and wholesale services, education services, health and social services, and leisure and hospitality services. In the US, 1/2 of all jobs are in consumer services. Business services facilitate the activities of other businesses and provide labor instead of selling goods. About 1/4 of all jobs in the US are in business services. The main purpose of public services is to provide security and to protect citizens and businesses. Some examples of public service jobs are military, police, and firefighters. Where are most services distributed? Services are clustered in developed countries since more people who live in developed countries can afford them. A settlement is a permanent collection of buildings where people reside, work, and obtain services. Geographers view services and settlements as closely related since services play a big part in why settlements exist. The reason why services are clustered in settlements is simple. Proximity to the market is the most important locational factor regarding services. The optimal location for a service is near its customers. In the US, employment in service jobs has been increasing, while employment in primary and secondary jobs has been decreasing. That sums up Key Issue 12.1. Thank you.
Chapter 12, Key Issue 2, starts with the German geographer Walter Koestler creating the central place theory in the 1930s. The central place theory is the most profitable location that someone can identify to provide goods and services. A central place is the market center for people to provide goods and services in the surrounding area. The central place theory has three main components consisting of the market area, range, and threshold. The market area is the area that is surrounded by a service in which people are attracted to. This is an example of a nodal region in which the center has the highest characteristics. The market area can be represented by an imperfect circle or later on a hexagon to help identify which region is closest to the site. The range of service is the maximum distance people would willing to drive to. For example, some people would drive a short distance for their everyday supplies like groceries, and some people would drive a long distance for events like a concert. The range of service can be identified as the radius of the circle. This can help geographers determine how big a market area is. Instead of meters and miles, people regularly measure the distance through time. Lastly, the threshold is the minimum number of people needed for a service to thrive. Once the range has been determined, a service provider is able to help determine how profitable a location is by counting the potential customers inside the market area. However, the potential customers inside the market area depends on what product interests them. For example, younger people could be more attracted to malls and fast foods, while adults can be attracted to clubs and bars. Geographers started to use the hexagon to represent the market area since circles would tend to overlap and squares would have a different distance of range. Furthermore, geographers will examine settlements from largest to smallest, thus creating the ring size rule. The ring size rule is that the country's nth largest settlement makes up one end of the largest settlement. For example, the second largest settlement can make up 1/2 of the largest settlement's population. This pattern can help justify how wealthy the country is to provide goods and services to the consumers in the country. Although some countries couldn't follow this rule, which then created the primate city rule. The primate city is when the largest settlement is more than twice as many people than the second largest settlement. An example of this can be when Mexico City is 10 times larger than the 5th largest settlement, Toluca. This pattern can show that their society is wealthy enough to provide a full service for their people. The central place theory also stated that developed countries would have more hexagons with various sizes, creating the nesting pattern of service and settlements. The nesting pattern could show that developed countries would have more smaller settlements with small ranges and thresholds. They were able to represent this nesting pattern to 4 different levels of market areas, being the hamlets, villages, towns, and cities. Geographers were able to convert the gravity model of physics to retailing of geography. They use the gravity model to measure the interaction between a person and a service. It is also able to predict how optimal the location is by counting the number of people in the area related to the distance that they would have to travel. A best location would be a place where there are less travel distance for all the potential customers to travel to. The gravity model also shows that the greater people settled in a certain area, the greater potential customers. The main reason that there are less interaction between the people and service is that the distance is too great for them to interact. In both developed and developing countries, some services and goods can be worked through periodic markets. Periodic markets are when individual vendors will combine together to provide the services on a specific day. Periodic markets mainly provide goods and services to villages, but to urban areas on a part-time basis. Most periodic markets are mobile, having the ability to move from one place to another, such like different farms to different markets. Sharing services are services that are involved in sharing to be able to expand rapidly, like transportation. An example of a sharing service is the use of Uber and Lyft, in which they compete with taxi. All are the same, but the difference is that Uber and Lyft is called through a smartphone, while taxi can be called outside on the street or through a smartphone. And that concludes Chapter 12, Key Issue 2.
Key issue 12.3. Where are business services distributed? Business services disproportionately cluster in some parts of urban settlements. Different individual settlements specialize in other kinds of business services. Many urban settlements are known as global or world cities. Global or world cities are defined as major centers for the provision of services in the global economy. Global cities play an important role in business services. Global cities are closely related to the global economy since they are at the center of the flow of information and capital. Some examples of business services that disproportionately cluster in global cities are headquarters or large corporations, financial institutions, or lawyers and accountants. In global cities, there are more consumer services which appeal to more people and have larger market areas. Leisure activities, luxury items, and specialized products are especially clustered in global cities due to more wealthy people living there. Additionally, national political powers could cluster in global cities. Mansions, palaces, and other important structures, such as foreign embassies, also cluster in global cities. Global cities are ranked and placed into 3 levels: alpha, beta, and gamma. There are 6 factors which are used to rank global cities, and they are economic factors, political factors, cultural factors, infrastructure factors, communications, and transportation. Some examples of global cities in the USA are New York, which is ranked as Alpha++, Los Angeles, which is ranked as Alpha, and San Diego, which is ranked as Beta. Developing countries specialize in 2 types of business services: offshore services and back office functions. Offshore services provide assistance with taxes and privacy. Assets which are placed into offshore centers are unable to be reached by the homeland if something were to go wrong. Some examples of offshore financial service centers are dependencies of the United Kingdom, dependencies of countries other than the United Kingdom, independent island countries, and independent countries which are not islands. Back office functions, otherwise known as business process outsourcing, deal with payroll management, transcription work, and insurance claims. Back offices are clustered in specific countries for 2 reasons: low wages and the ability to speak English. Economic activities can make a settlement look more distinct for the economic activities that happen there. Economic activities in a settlement are split into 2 types: basic and non-basic businesses. Basic businesses primarily export to customers living outside the settlement, while non-basic businesses primarily export to the customers who live in the same settlement. A cluster of basic businesses in a settlement is known as the economic base. Economic bases are important since basic businesses bring more money into the local economy. Basic businesses attract new workers and grow the population. Some examples of cities or settlements with economic specialization are Silicon Valley with tech, or how Las Vegas specializes in amusement or casinos. Talent is not distributed the same way among cities. Some cities have more talented individuals than others. Important scientists or professionals can create new innovations and promote business within the local economy. Some talented individuals are attracted to areas with the most job opportunities. And that concludes Chapter 12, Key Issue 3. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vance, and I'm going to be ending off the presentation by explaining Chapter 12, Key Issue 4, why services cluster in settlements, going through chronological order from early settlements all the way down to modern urban patterns. First, there are two types of settlements, rural and urban. Rural settlements are small and have low population density, while on the other hand, urban settlements are large and densely populated. Because of this, services cluster differently. Rural settlements have fewer services since there are fewer people to support them, while urban settlements have many services clustered together due to higher demand. For example, large cities have many businesses close together, while rural cities have fewer and more spread out services. Next, settlements can be arranged as clustered or dispersed, which affects how services are distributed. Clustered settlements have buildings close together, making it easier for services to concentrate. Dispersed settlements have buildings spread far apart, making it harder for services to cluster. This is why urban areas usually have more services while rural areas have fewer. Now, focusing on rural settlements, there are two types, clustered and dispersed. Clustered rural settlements are when people live close together in a group, usually surrounded by farmland, while on the other hand, dispersed rural settlements are when people live spread out on individual farms, far away from their neighbors. Services tend to appear more in clustered settlements because people are closer together. There are two main types of clustered rural settlements, circular and linear. Circular clustered rural settlements are arranged in a circle around a central open space. This central space is used for important activities and homes surround it, with farmland on the outside. An example from the book is a village in Kenya with this particular pattern. Linear clustered rural settlements are arranged in a line, usually along a road or river. Buildings are close together in a row and farmland extends behind each home. An example from the book is settlements along the St. Lawrence River in Quebec. Another example of clustered settlements is found in early New England. Colonists grouped houses around a central common which was used for shared activities. Important buildings like churches and schools were nearby as well. Over time, some people moved away to individual farms as transportation improved. Dispersed rural settlements are common in places like the United States. People live on separate farms, often far apart. This developed because land was widely available and people preferred independence. This book also shows how some European settlements changed from clustered to dispersed over time. Now, moving on into early urban settlements, these developed to provide services, but there was no single pattern for how they formed. Over time, settlements began offering different types of services, including consumer, business, and public services. Early consumer services included basic needs like food, trade, and religion. Business services supported trade by organizing the exchange of goods. Early public services included protection, laws, and leadership to keep order. Ancient urban settlements grew in regions like the Mediterranean and became centers of government, religion, and trade. Cities became more organized and social structure developed, with wealthier people living closer to the center. However, after the fall of major empires like Rome, many cities declined, trade decreased, and urban life shrank. During the medieval period, cities began to grow again. Trade increased and cities have important centers of business and culture. These cities were compact, with buildings close together and often surrounded by walls. Moving on to our final section, modern urban patterns. There are two main ways services cluster in cities. In the central business district, or as you guys know, CBD, and in suburban areas. Central business district is the main center of business in a city. It has the highest concentration of services, including offices, retail stores, and financial institutions. Land values are very high, so buildings are very tall. For example, major cities have downtown areas filled with skyscrapers and businesses. The second pattern is suburbanization in edge cities. Suburbanization happens when businesses move away from the CBD into outer areas. This happens because land is cheaper and there is more space. This leads to the development of edge cities, which are clusters of businesses and services outside the main city center. Examples include shopping centers and office parks located in a suburban area, like Plaza Bonita. Services cluster together for several reasons. First is being too close to customers will increase sales, and being near other businesses attract even more people. Transportation access also makes certain locations more valuable. For example, businesses often group together in busy shopping districts where many customers pass through. Transportation and accessibility play a major role in service clustering. Services are often located near major roads or transportation hubs because these locations are easier for customers to reach, increasing traffic and business success. Urbanization also increases clustering of services. Urbanization is the movement of people from rural to urban areas. As more people move into cities, the demand for services increases and businesses cluster together to serve large populations. This is seen in the growth of large cities and megacities. In developed countries, service clustering is highly organized. Cities have clearly defined, the CBD and suburban areas are well developed, with edge cities. In developed countries, service clustering is highly organized. Cities have clearly defined central business districts, and suburban areas are well developed with edge cities. Transportation and communication systems help support this structure. In contrast, in developing countries, service clustering is less organized. Rapid urban growth often leads to a lack of planning, uneven distribution of services, and the growth of informal settlements that may lack access to services. The overall idea is that services cluster in settlements because of population size, accessibility, economic benefits, and the level of development. Urban areas, especially in developed countries, show the most organized clustering, while rural and developing areas show less concentration. Well guys, this is the end of our presentation of Chapter 12, Key Issue 1 through 4. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I hope to see you guys again next year. Bye bye.
3, 2, 1.
Thank you!
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.